once knew a man named Elias Rourke, a quiet sort of fellow with deep lines around his eyes and a perpetual smell of salt and old canvas clinging to his clothes. He used to captain a weather-worn fishing trawler called the Marlin's Wake, and he never spoke of the sea unless he'd had one too many drinks. When he did, his voice would slip into something low and almost reverent, like he was recalling something sacred, or perhaps something cursed. It was during one of these drunken evenings, while the wind howled against the pub's windows and the lanterns sputtered low, that he told me about her. About the girl they found tangled in the kelp nets, far beyond the fishing lanes, where the charts grew pale and uncertain. He said it began with a fog, thick as wool and wrong somehow. Too quiet. No gulls overhead, no slap of waves against the hull. Just stillness, like the sea had stopped breathing. They were 2 days east of the reefs when it happened. The crew had lowered the trawl net and were hauling up the morning catch when they saw her. At first, they thought it was some kind of animal. A massive seal, twisted in the netting, thrashing in desperation. But as they drew it in, they realized it wasn't a seal at all. It was a woman, naked, pale as moon milk, with dark hair slicked to her shoulders and eyes the color of deep water. A seal's skin, smooth and slick, was tangled around her legs. She clutched at it like it was part of her body, sobbing and whispering words none of them understood. Gaelic, Elias guessed, or older. Most of the crew wanted to cut her loose, let her slip back into the sea. But the youngest of them, Tommy Finch, he was the one who lifted the sealskin and held it up in the light. "It's not just hide," he said. "Looks like it's stitched with silver thread. Bet it's worth a king's ransom." Elias tried to take it from Tommy, tried to give it back to her, but the others had already decided. Greed does something to men. It makes them blind. Dave, too. They locked the skin in the iron chest below deck, the one they used to store firearms and precious cargo. The woman, if you could call her that, never spoke to them again. Not in words, at least, but she watched. She watched each of them, with eyes like still water on the edge of a storm. And something about the air grew colder with every passing day. That's when the strange things began. First, it was the birds. They stopped following the ship. You don't notice how constant their presence is until it's gone. Their cries, their shadowy glides overhead. Then the fish vanished. Nets came up empty. The water turned oily, dark. The compass spun without direction, and fog rolled in even on windless days. At night, Elias said he could hear her moving under the deckboards. Not pacing, slithering, like the sea itself had curled up inside her and was shifting restlessly. Tommy was the first to go. He stepped out for a smoke one night and never came back. They found his boots near the railing, laces still tied. No splash, no sound. Then it was McAllister. He'd started muttering to himself, talking about music he heard in the fog. Said he'd seen her standing at the prow, arms outstretched, trying to call something from beneath the waves. They found him in the galley, bleeding from the ears. No wounds, just blood, and a smile on his lips like he'd heard some distant lullaby. Elias, hardened as he was, had started to unravel. He told me he began dreaming of underwater cities, corridors of coral and bone, pulsing with blue light. He saw her in the dreams, always watching him, always silent. She never tried to hurt him, he said, but she was waiting, patient, like the tide. He finally broke when he found the iron chest open. There were no signs of forced entry. The lock remained snapped shut, but the hide was gone. The woman too. All they found was a trail of wet footprints leading up from below deck to the stern. And the sea, which had been eerily still, was churning again. He tried to convince the remaining crew to turn back, to head for port, and never speak of it again. But they laughed, said the girl had jumped overboard, that it was over, but it wasn't. The fog returned the next night, thicker than before. It swallowed the moon and the stars. Then came the knock-in, not from within the ship, but from the water, from beneath. First it was slow, rhythmic, like something brushing against the hull. Then it grew louder, angrier. Elias said it sounded like fists. Hundreds of them. They dropped anchor, terrified to move forward. But that night, the sea rose. Not in a storm, not in waves. It just rose, like a black tide determined to reach them no matter how high they climbed. By morning, the ship was intact, but the deck was wet, every inch soaked, as though it had rained. But the sky had been clear when Elias last looked. And the crew? All of them were gone, except Elias. He didn't know why he was spared. Maybe because he tried to return the skin. Maybe because she wanted him to remember. Maybe that was part of the punishment. He abandoned the ship. A fishing boat found him days later, drifting in a lifeboat, half mad and raving about, eyes beneath the waves. He never went back to the sea. The ship. The Marlin's wake was found gutted off the coast weeks later. No crew, no signs of struggle. Just empty oilskin boots on the deck and a single wet print leading toward the railing. When Elias finished telling me the story, he looked me dead in the eye and asked if I believed him. I didn't answer at the time, but I saw the fear in him, real and raw, the kind you don't fake. I did some digging after that night. Just curiosity, I told myself. Found an old legend, a Selkie they called it, a seal woman. Said if a man steals her skin, she becomes his, bound to the land until the skin is returned. But if she finds it again, if she slips it back over her body, she doesn't just return to the sea. She takes it with her.